Good morning. Good morning. Great to see you. So pleased that you are here with us here at the Forge this morning. I don't know whether any of you have read this recently, but there was a guy who was traveling and he got mugged. Basically, a bunch of kind of no-gooders came, attacked him, took everything that he'd got in his possession, and beat him up and then legged it. And so there was this guy, he was kind of half conscious, he was lying in the dirt and in an awful lot of pain. And if you have read this, you'll know that there was a couple of people who kind of went past. The first one just completely ignored him. And the second one kind of took a look and then just carried on walking. But fortunately, there was this a third person who came, and as soon as he saw what had happened, he knelt down next to this guy. He stopped where the blood, where he was kind of bleeding. He kind of tried to cover the open wounds and cleaned him up. I mean, he had been so badly beaten up. He was bruised. It was just awful. And then it was incredible. The generosity of the guy who stopped made sure that this man who had been beaten up was able to get recovery and have a time of kind of rehab of being able to get back into a full working order again. And he covered the cost of everything. Did any of you read that? It's in Luke chapter 10. It's a story of the Good Samaritan. I don't know if any of you have heard of that one before. But Jesus told that story 2,000 years ago of two people who chose not to get involved, not to get their hands dirty. And those two people made no difference to this world. But one man chose to kneel down, chose to get in the mud, get in the dirt and the dust, and look to make a difference. And that guy changed everything for that man's life. Now, we're into week 3 of this series, as Becky was saying, called This Is Us, explaining who we are as a church, what's important to us, and why we do what we do. And so today, our kind of theme is, why do we get our hands dirty? So if you're visiting us here today, first of all, please know that you are so welcome. We love it when new people come to kind of check us out or to visit through an invite of a friend. We are really, really grateful and pleased that you're here. So but what will happen is this talk will give you just a little kind of snapshot into who we are and why we do what we do. And if there's anything that kind of resonates with you in any way, we would love to be able to talk with you afterwards. We have this area just down to your left. It's called the info point. And please do come after the service while drinks are being served, and we would love just to chat with you a little bit more. But as a church, we want to take what Jesus taught and what Jesus modeled. We want to take that seriously. We want to be able to kind of live that out in our individual lives, but also within the life of us as a church community too. And because of that, we cannot, therefore, ignore the mess in the world. We cannot ignore the suffering that some people experience within our local communities. Nor can we ignore the call that Jesus makes on his followers too. So let me give you a little bit of background, and then I want to go over 4 practical ways in which we can look and why it's important for us to get our hands dirty, okay? So when Jesus began his ministry, one of the first accounts that we get of him as an adult, that is, he went to the synagogue, which was where the Jews met for their kind of religious services. And they didn't have Bibles like we would have Bibles. Of course they didn't. They didn't have it on their phones just to have a quick check on the Bible app. None of that was happening. And so what they would have is they would have scrolls, and those scrolls would be moved around from synagogue to synagogue so that different things could be read from what we would know as the Old Testament. And Jesus took out this scroll, and it was of a prophet, a man called Isaiah, who 800 years before Jesus had recorded things that God was going to say was going to happen in the future for the people of Israel. And he opened it up to this one scroll. And these are the words that he read out. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim the captives, or to proclaim that captives will be released, that the blind will see, and that the oppressed will be set free, and that the time of the Lord's favor has come. And it says, Luke, who was recording this, he said, Jesus then just kind of rolled up the scroll, put it back again, and said, today, this has come into fruition. This is happening. In other words, right from the start, Jesus made it really, really clear what his mandate was, what his purpose, what he was going to do during the rest of his time here on earth. And basically, his mission would not involve him trying to stay clean. It wouldn't involve him kind of distancing himself from the mess or detached either. No, Jesus was saying right at the very beginning that he was going to enter the mess of human life in order to bring healing, in order to bring hope, and to bring restoration. So, what carries on after Jesus had made that statement was fulfilling his mission. A man came up to him, a man who was blind, and says, I've been blind from birth. Would you heal me? Would you make a difference? Would you give me my eyesight back? Because he'd heard that Jesus was able to perform these miracles. And so Jesus did something which the blind man obviously couldn't see, but he would have heard, because it was a bit gross, really. Jesus spat into the ground. He then mixed all of that saliva in the dust, and then he slapped it on the eyes of the guy who was blind. Nice. And then he says, now you go and wash in a pool nearby. And so the guy was led to the pool. And as soon as he washed his eyes clear of the mud, he could see. For the first time in his whole life, he could see. What did Jesus say? He said that the blind will see. There was a dad who came up to Jesus. He was desperate. His son would have these fits that he would flail around and cause himself damage, but cause others who were nearby damage. And the dad was at the end, he didn't know what to do. And so he decided to come to Jesus, and he says, Jesus, will you do something for my son? And so just as Jesus, who recognized what was going on, that there was some kind of presence, evil spirit or something in this guy's life, which was causing these horrendous fits. Just as Jesus said for that spirit to come out of him, the boy kind of started flailing around again and went berserk, and he screamed. And then he just fell on the floor as if he was dead. And everyone gasped and took a step back, apart from one man. Jesus just bobbed down, took hold of this little boy's hand and helped him up, and this little boy was free. What did Jesus come to do? Well, he'd come to proclaim that the captives will be released and that the oppressed would be set free. Jesus, he was known for getting his hands dirty. That he would go to the unclean people called the lepers, and when they pleaded with him to heal them, that what would Jesus do? Jesus would touch them. No one touched anyone with leprosy. I mean, it was safe to do so, but they didn't think that it was. It was a little bit like when AIDS first kind of appeared back in the 80s, that people wouldn't touch anyone who had AIDS in case they caught it. That was the kind of society with regards to leprosy. And what did Jesus do? Jesus would touch them, the first human touch that they would have had since their illness. And he healed them. He got involved in the mess of people's lives. He stood alongside them. He loved them. But he didn't just serve people out there. He didn't just get involved with people out in the community. He got involved with those that who were close to him, who were following. that there was the time when they were going to have a meal and they were all getting ready to start to eat. And then Jesus got up and he got a towel and he got a bowl and then he went around and washed his disciples' feet. He was doing the job of the lowest servant, because who likes to wash other people's feet? That's not a rhetorical question. Who likes to wash other people? It's gross, isn't it? It's just horrible. And there was Jesus doing that for his disciples. And then at the end of that, this is what he said. He said, I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet. You should also wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. And if you want the ultimate picture of dirty hands, all we have to do is to move forward where Jesus' hands were pierced on a cross, blooded, wounded, stretched out in sacrificial love, taking your mess, taking my mess on himself. That's the Jesus that we follow. The one who has given his life for us, which is why we can sing that song that I give you my life. I give you my whole life. That's the Jesus that we follow. So our mission as a church, we have a little phrase, it's quite short. Some of you, hopefully, it'll be starting to penetrate in your minds by now. Our mission is to help people to find and follow Jesus. And how do we do that? Well, we do that by getting messy, getting our hands dirty, getting involved, by moving towards the mess instead of moving away from it. And that plays out globally and locally, individually, and amongst us as a church community too. So what I want to do just over the next few minutes is just to think of 4 different ways in which I believe God calls us and that we are putting into practice 4 different ways of getting our hands dirty, as Jesus did. The first one is this. It's getting our hands dirty globally. In a few weeks' time, 6 of us are going to be going out to Guatemala to work with one of our global partnerships called Street Kids Direct. The head of Street Kids Direct is a guy called Duncan Dyson. You can see him there in those 2 pictures. And Duncan, when he moved out to Guatemala, he used to live in Amersham here in the UK, but moved out to Guatemala and started Street Kids Direct because when he was out there, he saw, he knew and met so many of the 5,000 children who were living out on the streets. When we went out 2 years ago, he took us to just one of the roads where he said when he first arrived, there were 50 children all lying outside sleeping rough. 50 children. And the problem was is that there are gangs that operate right across Guatemala. And so the gangs pick up on these kids and draw them into the gang lifestyle of drugs, of drink, of murder, of fighting. It's horrendous. And Duncan couldn't stay quiet about it, couldn't do nothing about it. He wanted to. So he started this charity. And about 25, 30 years later, there are no children living on the streets in Guatemala City. No children. It is extraordinary how they have got their hands dirty in order to rescue kids from the brink. But of course, there are still thousands of vulnerable children who have got a place to sleep, but perhaps their family is very dysfunctional. They don't go to school, so they just wander and play around the streets, still kind of fearful or still with the risk of gangs picking them up. And so what Street Kids Direct have done is just brilliant. They support children from these unsafe home situations. They offer a safe space for them to come to during the day. They offer education at a level for the kids who refuse to go to school or just choose not to, in order to be able to educate them. And they mentor the young people. They spend an hour a week, one-to-one, working with these children and young people in helping them make better choices in life. And most of the mentors that they have today are people who have been mentored in the past and are now giving back into the program and into the community. I'll tell you, when the team visited 2 years ago, we met a family living in extreme poverty. You can see on the next photographs just here. And there were 2 girls, part of a much, much bigger family. And none of them had ever had new clothes. They were all hand-me-down clothes. I mean, they were so thin. It was, as in the clothing, was so worn out. And so Paul, who's operating visuals today, and his wife, Karen, decided they wanted to take 2 girls to the market in order to get them new clothes. And these girls could not believe it. They were trying on jeans and T-shirts and jackets and all of that. And eventually they decided what they wanted, which is what you can see them doing there. And then they just whispered, through translator, we found out that they had whispered, "Can we keep the clothes on when we go home?" And so their clothes, which they had come in, are in those little plastic bags just there. And those girls were just made up. It was so fantastic to see. Now, I'm surprised that Paul and Karen didn't do it for all the kids in Guatemala. I was a bit disappointed in them. But you see, you can do for one that you would love to do for everyone. And those girls, if you ask them, was it worth it? Boy, would they say yes. We support 3 global partners around the world that are in our way of trying to make a difference to a world out there. We are never going to be able to make much difference, but we can make the difference that being part of it can. So we partner with Street Kids Direct. They're with Duncan Dyson. I've explained a little bit about them. We also partner with an organization called Hands at Work. And we've partnered with them since, I think it was 2009. And over the years, we will have sent probably 100 or 150 people out to Zambia to work alongside the teams that work with the most vulnerable families, the child-led families or the grandparent-led families. And we go to visit homes. We've been involved in building roofs for schools and doing healthcare trips, but mostly we will run holiday clubs. And every 2 years now, we travel out to Zambia. We're involved in supporting 150 children in a village called Maposa. And the money that individuals pay towards the cost of food security, making sure that they get a proper meal a day, that they get education, and that they get health care. And so we have loads and loads of people within the life of our church who sponsor a child. It's not a specific child, but we're able to sponsor 150. And for those, for the money where we're kind of short, that just comes out of the pot from the Forger's finances. But that might be something that you would be interested in picking up on sponsoring a child in that village, making sure that they get everything that they need to be able to survive and thrive. I'll tell you, when we go on these trips, and this was part of what we wanted to be able to achieve, not just to pray for people, not just to send money, but to actually be able to go out and meet and experience and see what a different world looks like from here in Suffolk. And what happens is that when we get our hands dirty, it does something to our heart. It really does. And so we have Steve and Zoe and Phoebe Shears. They have been out to Africa, out to Zambia a number of times, and it's captured their heart. Really has. And so later on this year, they're going to be going out for, I don't know how long, how many years it's going to be, but they're going out to get their hands dirty out there in serving some of the poorest people in Africa. It's extraordinary, because when we get our hands dirty, it gets our heart. The third partnership that we have is our Croatia partnership. This is primarily for our younger people, to give them a first taste of kind of a mission experience, a global experience. And so these camps are organized, as you see there, by Ash and Tamara. And Ash used to be part of our church here and then went to work out in Croatia. And they run camps for 2 or 3, 4 weeks over the summer holidays there in Croatia. And so a team of our young people, along with Tim, our youth worker, head out every year to help on those camps. And do you know what they do? They clean the loos. They do the washing up. They do the grotty jobs to make the camp thrive. I am so proud of our young people for being willing to pay money to clean loos, to pay money to do washing up, to pay money to do the grotty jobs. Because that's what Jesus did. And our young people, I think, are modeling it so brilliantly. So there are 3 partnerships of how we try to get involved globally in being able to demonstrate love and to serve others. But we also want to get our hands dirty locally as well. And I'm incredibly proud of our local projects made possible by amazing volunteers and staff team. I've just put some of them up here just for you to be aware. We run the Moses Project, the Furniture Bank. The Moses Project is Moses Baskets. All the information is out as you leave today. Furniture Bank, Christmas Hampers, Lunch Club, Food Pantry, Hardship Fund, Schools Work, and Base Bites and practical support. There are hundreds of people locally who are helped and supported because of the generosity of you as you give, but also as you give time towards these projects too. It really makes a difference. We've recently relaunched that bottom one called the Practical Support Team. And that's led by Alex Manchester. And what I love is that social services and family workers will contact the Forge to say, could you help this family in a specific way? And I love it that they trust the Forge enough to come to us first in asking for us to be able to help a family. That's been built up because of Becky, who's hosting today. Becky, over the 10, 12 years, 15 years, however long it was that you worked with us, she just got to know so many of the professionals in Mid Suffolk. And so we have become a trusted group of people for them to call on. So a few weeks or months ago, a team of 6 of us were able to go and help a mum who had 2 children but was really struggling with life, struggling to cope with the household and things. And so a team were able to go in to remove some unwanted furniture, to clear bags of rubbish, to help clean up the house a bit, just in order to give her a little bit of hope because she'd lost it. She was so grateful. We've got a team of 8 people going out in the next couple of weeks to do something similar to for another family that we've been requested to support. It's messy. It's messy. But it's what Jesus did, and it's what Jesus calls us to walk towards the mess. In future, I would love, rather than having one-off hits, I would love for us to get to the point where when we help out a family like that, we can put a friend in who will then look to do some ongoing support of maybe having a cup of tea just to give them a visit once a week, and maybe while doing that, doing some washing up or something just to support on a longer term basis. But maybe it's time just in thinking of those 2 things, globally and locally. Maybe globally, it's time for some of us here to start to consider taking the risk with our finances and with our emotions to say, I need to broaden my view of the world and of what God's doing in the world. And maybe choose to say, Africa next year, I think I want to save up to be part of a team that makes a difference in those kids' lives that we'll get to meet. Or maybe locally, you'll be thinking, well, perhaps I could offer some time to the practical support team. I mean, it's random requests that come in. It's not an organized thing. It's whenever is needed. And maybe you could offer some time to be able to help out in those situations. That's getting involved and getting our hands dirty globally and locally, but then also getting our hands dirty individually. Corporately, we can do lots, but individually, we have a responsibility as well. Last week, I spoke about having a new mindset of being able to view life through the lens of Jesus rather than just our culture. And especially with regards to work, so that we don't just view work of having to get a job done to get me money and that's fine, but actually to see it as a way of serving Jesus. And so, what does it look like for getting our hands dirty individually? Well, there is one cute, gorgeous woman coming up here on the screen. Whew, she is hot. Now, for those who are visiting, that's my wife, okay? Just in case. Who is this bloke? Sarah works part-time as a supply teacher. She runs year 6 kind of booster classes for those kids that might be struggling a little bit towards SATs, and so she looks to invest time with them. But Sarah sees her role, her job, as much more than that. She's there a day and a half a week. But while she's there, she looks to make a difference. She makes the staff cups of tea. She does what every staff member hates doing. She fills the dishwasher in the staff room. But she offers 3 hours of her time so that if staff are struggling and are needing some extra time to do paperwork or whatever, she's willing to just to volunteer her time to be able to look after the class so that a staff member can cope a little bit easier. She meets a number of the staff for coffee. She listens to their stories and what's going on in their lives. She supports them. Now, Sarah is a supply teacher for a day and a half a week, but it's so much more than that to her. That's Sarah getting her hands dirty where she already is. So what about you, where you work? How can you look to make a difference within your working community? Maybe for those that you work with, you would be able to somehow express practical love to those that you work with. Or maybe for who you work for, that you're able to do something to demonstrate a God who is so loving and a God who chose to get his hands dirty. Finally, getting our hands dirty here at the Forge. Everything we do here depends on people. It does. People giving time, people giving energy, people bringing their gifts, talents, and passions. The Forge is able to do what we do because of you. It's true. Everything we do is because of you. Take a listen to Eleanor's story. Now, she is someone, well, I was going to say, often we choose people on videos who are kind of really confident and extroverts and that. Eleanor is not an extrovert. She's an introvert. She's quite shy. But have a listen to her story.
My name's Eleanor, and I've been coming to the Forge for almost a year now, and I'm a healthcare assistant at Debenham Care Center. I've been a carer for about 2 years now. I had started off with domestic care, going to people's homes who are a bit more independent. I'm now in a care home and I look after about 40 people. I really enjoy it and it is my purpose. Caring is my purpose and it's definitely a gift from God. My role involves personal care, getting people up ready for the day, and just looking after them, making sure they have a good day. So a few years ago, I came to the Forge with Val Rosier, and at that point I was part of a small Baptist church, but as there's so many young people in the Forge, I've decided to make it my home. While I've been at the Forge for almost a year now, Sarah and Sonia had asked me to help out with refreshments. It makes a nice change because I have been attending for quite a while and I didn't feel like I had a role in the church. I found it really helpful being asked to put forward onto refreshments as I'm quite a shy person and I don't think I would have had the courage to do it myself. So my experience with church now is very different. I really enjoy just talking to different people, because I used to just keep my head down and just talk to my friends, so it's nice to mix with different people and ask them how their day is going. So after being asked, I shadowed Sonia on one of the Sundays, and I felt I really fitted into the team and I really enjoyed the role, and off the back of that I felt like I wanted to join. After finding my place in the life of the church, I have found it extremely helpful, and if any of you are just attending, I'd strongly recommend that you get involved and find your role.
See, whether extrovert or introvert, you can play a part. I love what Eleanor said when she said that caring is my purpose. She's able to fulfill that role of caring, of meeting people at a point of need and looking to demonstrate love. She's able to do that in her work. Now, not all of us have jobs like that, but all of us can find ways in which we can serve and work alongside others. But also, what she was saying there about finding her role within the life of the church. Listen, to everyone who serves here, I want to say thank you. To the car park and the welcome team, thank you. To the hospitality team, for the tech and the band, the hosts and speakers, thank you so much. For our kids and youth teams, for our local and global project leaders, the leaders within the life of the church, the staff team, the admin, the finance, the governance. I tell you, you are exceptional. We are such a resource-rich church because of you. We really are, because you bring what God has given to you to serve others, and it makes such a difference. If you're not serving at the moment, can I just ask that you be really grateful for those that do, because you are benefiting from hours that people put in to be able to serve you. But my hope is that everyone who chooses to call the Forge their home will actually connect through serving, finding their place in the mission of the church. 2 questions coming up here on the screen. Is it possible to serve and not follow Jesus? Absolutely it is. Of course it is. But is it possible to follow Jesus and not serve? Well, if you're not going to get involved globally, and you're not going to get involved locally, and you're not going to get involved individually, and you're not going to get involved in church life, I'm not sure which Jesus you're following. Because Jesus modeled something so different. He doesn't call us to be consumers. He calls us to be contributors, because he's given each one of us a gift in which we can use for his glory. And the more volunteers that we have, the more that we can do as a church. That's just common sense, isn't it? So, after this service, if you're someone who would be at least interested in finding out about getting involved somehow, then why don't you come down to the information table just over here. There's just a little form there which asks for your name, telephone number, and if there's an area that you'd like to explore. If you don't know where you'd like to serve, that's fine. Just leave that one blank. We would love to have a conversation with you to see how you can be involved and finding your place. If you want just a quick highlight as to some of the kind of the areas where we're still needing to build volunteers, here we go. There's the kids congregations. We have 3 kids congregations, and so look to get involved from the age of 0 up to the age of 10. Sunday setup, that's arriving early and putting chairs out and getting sorted here. Please, I'm involved in that. Please sign up for that one. Sunday pack down, furniture bank, the lunch club that meets monthly, Base Bites that meets on a Monday weekly at the school. But come down to this area and we would love to talk with you. Jesus said these words. He said, I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. So let's keep getting our hands dirty for the sake of the community, for the sake of the mission of the church that God has placed in us, and as an expression of our love for Jesus. Getting involved, getting our hands dirty. Next week, we're going to be picking up on another area where we can contribute rather than consume. We're going to be thinking about why we give and why we give generously as a church. And next week, I'm going to be talking more about the following week, which will be the 1st of March, where we have what we know as a gift day. Now, normally this is a gift month, but we're shortening it to a day. We're asking people to pray between now and then as to what it is that we might want to contribute towards the goal of £40,000 that we're needing to raise for this year. I will explain more next week, so make sure that you come back. And on the 1st, there will be a pledge form to fill in. So you haven't got to give the money straight away, but you can pledge how much you want to give towards that target. We're not called to be consumers. We're called to contribute. We're not called to be idle. We're called to be involved. Let me pray for us. Father, thank you so much for the array of gifts and talents and time that people here are willing to give to serve you, to serve your church, to serve your world. Lord, thank you that every single one of us can play a part in seeing your mission of helping people find and follow Jesus actually come to fruition. So please, Lord, would you help us to know our part? Would you help us to be brave and to take a step forward into becoming more like you through serving those around us? In Jesus' name, amen.
Should we stand and sing?